because I know I learned so
Thank
much about things that we really should be aware of, especially when it comes to our food, and I want to talk a little bit about organics. Yeah. So we've all seen the word, it's out there everywhere, it's on all these packaged foods, it's kind of a buzzword at this point.
And what's not in our food, right? That's really the topic of today. It's not so much what we're eating, but what's perhaps not what we're not eating, right?
That's right.
Organic.
So what does organic mean?
It's a great question. A lot of folks aren't necessarily very clear on it. So it's the no GMO, it's no use or very limited use.
Genetically modified.
Genetically modified. Messing around with the actual genes within our produce and making something that otherwise hasn't existed before, and wondering, the question is ultimately, how do our bodies deal with that? We're not entirely sure. There are regulations around this, by the way. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later on. No pesticide or very limited amounts of pesticide. We're talking about dairy and we're talking about eggs and otherwise livestock. It's limiting or no use of antibiotics, because not only when these individual animals are sick, but it's the low-dose antibiotics given to them over time to enhance their growth. Yeah. And ultimately, that causes resistant strains of bacteria in these animals. And then the use of hormones. So basically, organics is the no use of any of that stuff.
They're just also naturally growing.
Naturally grown, soil rotation taken into consideration, because we've got to be considering, you know, of our plots of lands that we're growing on this in order to get these things filled with minerals and vitamins. But, you know, and here's what's interesting. So Stanford recently did this huge review. Yeah. And this is what's created a huge buzz again, a resurgence of organics. Is it worth the money I'm paying for? And what they looked at was actually 17 human studies. So it's a study of studies, big studies, and 223 massive studies that were done to determine whether or not organics are actually more, you know, nutrient replenished or nutrient filled than non-organics. And that was really a subsidiary component of this study. What was most important was, how contaminated are they? Yeah. So 30% of conventionally grown fruits and vegetables and produce are extremely contaminated. They're otherwise not healthy for us.
Like to the point where they will harm us. To the
point where they are contributing to things like cancer, like Alzheimer's, neurodegeneration, especially when you're young. Look around the studio to these gorgeous children that are here. You know, you should really not be consuming anything pesticide laden from the point of 6 months preconception all the way through till in the child till the age of about 12. Otherwise, it's contributing to whatever really your genetic predisposition is.
I got some catching up to do. That's all I'm saying.
So these studies also show, again, as it relates to livestock, and they show that, you know, these small amounts of antibiotics that are given to these, in particular pork, they looked at 33% of non-organic conventionally raised pork was contaminated with these antibiotics to the point where they were growing resistant strains of bacteria, harming us.
Right.
So,
and the other thing is, you know, a lot of us talk about why our kids are hitting puberty so quickly, and there has been that link between the meat and the milk and the dairy that we're eating.
It's definitely a link. It's not proven science, but it's definitely one of those things I would be concerned about. Expediting the process, right?
Okay.
So,
well, you mentioned the fact that organics cost a lot more.
Well, you know what? Surprisingly, it's not as much as most people think. Most folks think it's like going to break the bank. Yeah. We'll talk in a second. You know, maybe let's talk now. What is the most important things to purchase organic versus non-organic?
Absolutely.
And the Environmental Working Group puts out a clean 15 list of foods that we perhaps don't necessarily need to focus or worry about as, you know, purchasing organic, and a dirty dozen. Those 12 top foods that are otherwise really so dirty or contaminated that we really do want to spend the extra money. Okay. So that is found, by the way, in the Environmental Working Group. I'm sure we'll have a link on Cityline.
Yes, we will put it up there.
Apples. You wouldn't believe it, but apples are some of the most contaminated in terms of pesticides, you know, used. Bell peppers. Yes. Okay.
Because you're eating the skin, you're eating the whole thing, right?
Isn't that interesting? So you picked up on that right away. So if you look on the table here, and sort of this side here is what you really want to focus on, some of the dirty dozen that you want to make sure you're buying organic and spending that extra money. And on this side, it's those fruits and vegetables produce that ultimately maybe you don't really need to purchase organic. And yes, the theme is maybe a thicker skin. These things are really well protected, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
It's a theme.
Would bananas be over here?
It's not yet proven. You know, that's a great question. So this list is actually about 75 long that they've studied intensely as to what is, and bananas are somewhere, you know, up there, but they're somewhere in the middle, you know. Okay. We have to be concerned. But it's a rule of thumb. It's not the hard rule that because something has a hard shell or a hull like this wonderful watermelon over here that you're okay with it. You know, it depends on where it comes from. It depends on, you know, if it's imported. Interesting. Also, the research is showing that depending on when we buy it, for example, importing, you know, grapes out of season. is 3, 4, 5 times even higher in pesticide content.
That's why you should eat local and eat seasonal, right?
Exactly. So,
okay, so let's talk about how people might know what is organic or not. We know we've got some seals that you should look for, because it is kind of complicated when you go to the grocery store.
100%. This is our Canadian organic seal of approval. When you see some of the highest standards in North America, which basically, looked at, the USDA and their approval seal, which we'll show next, amalgamated that with more stringent guidelines imported. That's the USDA organic. Either way, you see the Canadian or the USDA, you're pretty well assured that, you are purchasing a very well certified organic product.
Okay,
so it is very confident.
It's fairly safe for you. So you say the price difference is not that big a deal.
Well, let's do a little sort of demonstration here. Okay, so a really healthy snack for a child. Okay, so five strawberries, a stalk of celery, there we go, and an apple. All right. So let's put that all together.
Good, yummy, nutritious meal.
Yummy, nutritious snack. Lots of antioxidants. You've got your fiber. Stick a little bit of sunflower seed butter in there in that celery stalk. This, if it was organic, is going to cost you $2.20.
Okay.
If it's not organic, and it's going to cost you approximately $1.80. In both cases, the apple is 80 cents. In both cases.
Oh, really?
And apples are the highest on the list in terms of contamination. Remember I said that? So in terms of pesticide. So what is your child's health worth? We're talking contribution to Alzheimer's, endocrine disruption. Well, think about that when you're shopping.
Yeah,
no,
it's true.
The Clean 15.
It's a bit of an excuse,
The Clean 15. If you're really on a tight budget, the Clean 15, you don't have to buy organic.
Yes.
The Dirty Dozen. If that produce is not available and it's not organic, it's not either available to you, it's too expensive. You know what? Just don't feed it to your children. Don't consume it yourself.
I love it. And you know what? We should link your article to our website as well, because I learned a lot from that. Where'd all the food come from?
This was from Whole Foods.
Thank you, Whole Foods.
Whole Foods is an incredible place to get any of your produce needs organic.
Very
Wonderful
good.
shopping center.
Thank you, Bryce. Let's go to break. More coming up.